Hi everyone and welcome. I'm really glad you could join me. With all the uprisings going on across America right now, it may be a very upsetting time for a lot of folks. Not may, it is. I, for one. I remember the uprising in Watts near Los Angeles as a boy and how it affected my mother. Good friend of hers, an African American lady, was killed during that uprising. And I'll always remember how it affected her. And so maybe that's why I've brought out her book, our family's book of recipes, to try to make something that would kind of center myself. And with COVID going on and what happened with the violence and the uprisings across this country, it's stressful for many of us. And so making something quiet and peaceful and mind-centering seemed like a good idea. And that is sort of what this soap is going to be based on. And I call it Om because Om, well, I'll put it on the screen, but it is a sound that is sort of the beginning of finding our inner knowledge. And whether you believe in Eastern religions or not is not for us to discuss at this time, but just the concept, if nothing else, just the concept of finding that inner part of yourself and finding that inner peace, and with the knowledge that we're strong, we're one, and we are capable. And that's what this is. And I did get some yak milk, and I was really excited about that. And I had got that actually just before the pandemic started, and I was going to do a video on it, and wow, this just sort of all came together. So this is kind of an Indian-based recipe in that regard, that it uses Tibetan yak milk. And I will put some video on the screen for you as well as showing some of the yaks in Tibet. But I wanted to use some essential oils that were sort of reminiscent of that as well. So there's, you'll see all this on the screen. I suppose I don't need to go into it. But one of the most important things that I wanted to talk about was this country has a history of unfair treatment of African Americans. If you don't know this already, well, you've been behind a rock. It's obvious, and it hasn't ended. Have things improved? Well, in some regards, perhaps, but if you talk to an African American, they will tell you that things probably haven't changed that much, no matter what you hear on the media or from our politicians. From African Americans, from many of their standpoints, they're not treated fairly. And isn't that what matters? You know, my mother, I will share this with you. My mother used to say that if someone believes that there's a problem, there is a problem. Now, what does that mean? Well, just like if an employee comes to me and they say to me, I feel I'm being treated unfairly at work, or I feel like I'm not getting all the training I need at work. Even if I believe in my heart that it's true that they have been treated fairly, that they did get adequate training, it is my responsibility to listen to their complaint. And because if they believe there's a problem, well, that is a problem in itself, their belief that there's a problem. So you need to get to the root to that. Why do they feel that way? And sometimes simply by listening, you can gain a lot of information to help find that middle ground. And yes, there is violence on the streets. There's burning, there are fires and things. And That's frightening to a lot of people, as it should be, and that is sort of the message. Now, I understand that there's some people involved that are creating some of this violence from the outside. I think that's horrible, and I wish they'd go away and leave us alone and let us work this out. Especially those people coming from other countries. That's just a scary thought. But for those Americans that are here, that are protesting, it's completely understandable, because sometimes you have to really scream loudly for people to hear you. And hopefully they are heard, and hopefully our government and our citizens can understand this. Sometimes these things do stoke even more racism. I've seen it in the past, and I think that is really sad, that it doesn't bring people together. That people can't stop and go, why are these people so upset? What is it that is angering them? Why are they frustrated? Surely you must wonder that, even if you are the most vile racist. You must know that if people are screaming, stop hurting us, that they must feel, they must believe there's an issue. So why wouldn't you stop and listen and consider that? Okay, I know that I can get preachy in these videos. Gosh, that's sure not my intention. I'm just speaking my mind. I am not a screaming liberal, and I am not I'm not an angry conservative either. I'm neither of those things. I don't know exactly what I am. I'm just a human being, and I care about other human beings. That is the truth. And that is where I begin. Now, do I make mistakes? Heck yes. Do I always treat people fairly? I try my hardest. Have I made mistakes? I'm sure I have. But I have experiences in my own life that have changed my upbringing. Now, my mother gave me a very open-minded upbringing. My father was very closed-minded and cruel. So my mother had to overcome that, and I had to overcome some of that in my own life early on. I remember I worked at a company when I was just a young man with a fellow named Sam. And Sam and I became really good friends. Sam was African American. He and I would go after work for drinks sometimes. I would spend time at his home. He would come to my house. He even visited my mother's home. We became really good friends, and I miss him to this day. But we lived different lives, far apart from one another. But anyway, where was I going with this? Well, I remember he and I going into a hardware store. He was helping me to do some work in my home. And we had to go to the hardware store to get some supplies. And when we walked in, I went in one direction to get tape for putting on the sheetrock, and he was going over to look at the power tools because I wanted a new reciprocating saw, and he went over to look at those, and then I was going to meet him over there after I got stuff I was getting. And I went in, and as soon as I walked in, someone said, "Hey, is there anything I can help you find?" I said, "No, I know what I'm looking for," and I went on my way. But they followed Sam and watched him over the other shelves, and I saw this happening. And they were watching everything he did because he was African American. It was obvious, the difference, that they were treating me with respect, and if I could have walked out with very expensive equipment while they were watching him. Would have been so very easy. And yet, him, they were putting all their attention on, and they asked him several times, "What is it you're looking for? What do you need?" And that has stuck with me my whole life, and I mentioned it to him. We talked about it, and he said, "Patrick, I appreciate you saying that, but it's nothing new. We all deal with this," meaning African Americans. And it had just not occurred to me, I guess. I was young and shallow at the time. And it just opened up my brain and my heart to this happening. And I'm not a bleeding heart. There are some people that might refer to me that way, or a snowflake, or all those terms that are used toward people who care about others. And And even if and maybe I am, maybe I am to some degree those things, but is that always a bad thing? Isn't it good to care about others? So I've talked, and it has nothing to do with the soap, but it has everything to do with the soap. I will tell you that a lot of love has gone into the soap. Some concepts from my mother in regard to the ingredients that are in here that she used when I was young to, in her mind, help center me. And I'm not so sure it didn't work. And so hopefully it brings you some of that peace and centering as well. I appreciate I appreciate you all more than I can possibly tell you. It's been a real pleasure getting to know each of you, and I look forward to getting to know you so much better. So have a great day, everyone. I hope you're well and that you're safe. Great big hugs from me to you. Goodbye.